Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to this session of the 108 important shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. Today we shall be looking at two verses from the second chapter, namely verse 27 and 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayamudire Dnashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Iswaram Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनि नामने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादि पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Text 27 of chapter 2. Krishna is continuing his instructions to Arjuna on the subject matter of the differentiation of soul and body. So, in continuation of that discussion, we are reading text 27, which goes like this: Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur ध्रुवं जन्ममृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवं जन्ममृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि. Translation: One who has taken birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One has to take birth according to one's activities of life. After finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. The cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should Arjuna be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby being subjected to the reactions of sinful acts of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Iswaram. This is a very interesting shloka in the Bhagavad Gita. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मात् अपरिहार्यर्थे न त्वं शोचितुम अर्हसि. Krishna is telling Arjuna that this particular situation does not deserve any lamentation on your part. Na tvam shochitum arhasi. This particular situation, this particular happening, this particular event has no bearing ultimately, because Arjuna is worried, Arjuna is lamenting for a whole range of reasons which do not have an ultimate bearing on anything. This is what Krishna is pointing out here. While pointing that out, Krishna also makes a very strong statement. While he says that it does not deserve your lamentation, what does not deserve your lamentation? Apariharye, of that which is unavoidable. In the matter of that which is unavoidable, it does not deserve your lamentation. And what is that unavoidable thing? Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So Krishna is telling two very important things in this chapter, in this shloka. One is the inevitability of death. When we speak of death, normally we always say that this is one thing that is sure in life. Rather, we can say this is the only thing sure in life. Death is the only thing that is sure in everybody's life, that it will happen. Everything else may or may not happen, but death is something we will all surely meet one day or the other. But you see how wonderfully the material nature is working, that makes us deny the only sure thing that is supposed to happen in our lives. That is the strength of material nature. That is how Maya is affecting us. We speak about Maya apahrita jnanaha in the later part of Bhagavad Gita. That is, one whose jnana, one whose intelligence is stolen by Maya. When our intelligence gets stolen by Maya, we actually try and deny the only sure thing that is meant to happen in our lives. So, it is a grim reminder by Krishna. It is a very grim reminder by Krishna to all of us. And what is that? Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya ja. That is, one who is born is sure to die. And just as he is sure to die, he is also sure to take birth again. So it's not one thing actually. Krishna is saying two things. Although two things are very closely correlated, still these are two separate things when we look at it. One is inevitability of death, which we all try to put off. Many years back, somebody told me that why do you people call a satsang and then talk to people about death? Can you not speak something positive? Can you not speak something positive? What satsanga means, it should make people happy, no? Do you all agree or not? Satsanga means it is supposed to make everyone happy. Then why are you speaking about death? So our answer is, my dear sir, because Krishna speaks about this subject in the Bhagavad Gita, not only that, he is giving a reminder to Arjuna in the second chapter, he has devoted one entire chapter to death in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, we are not deciding authority when it comes to whether we should discuss death or not in satsanga. Because Krishna has already discussed it. And it is a reality. So it is not a question of whether we are being optimistic, pessimistic, positive, negative, all those things. Like we said last time, positive is the most negative word in the year 2020. And negative is the most positive word in 2020. So, what is the value of positive and negative in the material world? Everything is relative in this material world. Everything is relative. So that which you think is positive today can act negatively tomorrow. What you think is a negative train of thought, tomorrow you will think, no, actually that was good. So, when Krishna says that whoever is born is sure to die, we have to understand it in that manner. Understand it in that manner means what? Means each and every one of us has what we call a shelf life. Everyone comes with an expiry date. And once expiry date is gone past, within hours, within a few hours, in medical terms, there are two doctors, I think, in our satsanga. Some rigor mortis or something like that sets in. That means the body starts decaying and starts smelling. So, expiry date is fixed at the time of birth. You can't change it. Just like in so many products we find in the supermarket, there is an expiry date and they say use by date, use by so and so date. Beyond that, don't use it. No guarantee. As far as our bodies are concerned, after the use by date, definitely cannot be used. We can't use this vehicle called the body beyond the body's expiry date. So, Krishna is telling Arjuna that, he is pointing it out right in the beginning, saying that Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. And just as sure as somebody who is born will die, you can be equally sure that that person will be born again, Krishna is saying. So one thing is a verifiable fact for us. The first part of the shloka is a verifiable fact, meaning we actually see people die. And it can also be an irrefutable fact because we cannot produce somebody who has not died till now. Can we produce somebody last 5,000 years, sir, he has not yet died, he is continuing. Can even the greatest of scientists, can they produce somebody, sir, this person has been alive for 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 1 lakh years, 10 lakh years. Can you produce anybody? No. So, Jatasya dhruvo mrityuhu is a verifiable fact. The other part of the statement we accept as truth because it is spoken by Krishna. And because we understand from the Bhagavad Gita that the soul is actually transmigrating from one body to the next, and that is how another lump of flesh gets life. That is also scientifically proven fact. And scientists have no clue as to the source of that life. Where has it come from? They have no clue. So we put these two things together and we conclude that Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. And now Krishna is linking it to Arjuna's current situation. And What is Arjuna's current situation? Shochitum. Arjuna is very, very sad, very, very depressed. He is not only sad, he is also afraid of sinful reactions. Arjuna is sad that he has to kill all these people on one hand. Also, parallelly, along with being distressed about killing people who are very close to him, Arjuna is also worried about killing these people and incurring some sort of sinful reactions for these killings. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, either way you don't have to worry, because all these people, whoever is born, whoever you are seeing now, they will all die anyway. So what cannot be put off, what cannot be, you cannot make them not die. Arjuna cannot make any of these people not die. Arjuna cannot give any of these people eternal life in their present bodies. So in the natural course of events, all these people will die. So actually this shloka is helping the reader dispel the lamentation based on this illusory bodily concept of life, that this body has to be given up one way or the other. So he is telling Arjuna, either you have to end their existence in this body, or they will have to leave their body soon enough, because Bhishma Pitamaha is old, Dronacharya is old. So the two important people whom Arjuna is worried about are already on their way out. So what Arjuna is going to do in this war is just help them on their way. That is Krishna's point. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out that just because Krishna is telling Arjuna here that as your Kshatriya duty you must engage in this war, it does not mean that Krishna is encouraging violence. Just because there is a cycle of birth and death, it does not mean you can engage in slaughter, murder or war. It is not some mindless violence that you can go on slaughtering, you can go on murdering, you can go on waging wars. No. But Prabhupada points out, violence is an inevitable factor when it comes to establishing and maintaining law and order. Violence is inevitable. Like the battle of Kurukshetra, violence has become inevitable because all other options have been exhausted. Even in the modern world, you hear leaders, using this sentence that violence is the last resort. But that option is on the table. They say, no? They say that option is very much on the table. They will say like that. So it is there when it becomes inevitable to maintain law and order, when it becomes inevitable to establish peace, sometimes violence is required. And in Arjuna's case, Krishna is telling him that you don't fear for the death of your relatives, because now your duty as a Kshatriya is to engage in this war. And because you are engaged in your duty, which cannot be avoided, you will not incur sinful reactions. Because Arjuna is not breaking the law. He is not a lawbreaker. He is simply following Krishna's instruction. So that way he is safe. So the takeaways from this verse are: the bodily concept of life is very, very illusory and we must give it up. So Krishna is reminding us by saying that one who is born is sure to die. And we see even the great personalities, everybody has got a lifetime. Brahma, when we look at Brahma, we know that, one day of Brahma has 14 Manus, 14 Manvantaras go through one day of Brahma. And we know that 1000 Chaturyugas is one day of Brahma. So as far as we are concerned, that is a very, very long period of time. Because we have only 100 earthly years. The Devatas may have 1,000 heavenly years, for example. And Brahma has his 100 years based on his Brahmaloka calculation. He lives for 100 years. But everybody has got a time limit. And it is relative. Like for us, Brahma's 100 years is unimaginable. But for Vishnu, Mahavishnu, it is one Uchvasa. One inhalation, one exhalation, Brahma comes and goes. So, that way time is relative, but everybody has got a time limit. Meaning Brahma has also got an expiry date. So there is sometimes this misconception that, there was this great churning of the milk ocean, the Kshira Sagara Manthana, and Amrit was received and distributed to the Devatas, So, there is a general misconception that whoever has taken this Amrit, they become immortal. Actually, they don't become immortal in the sense that they cannot live in that same body forever. They cannot. Because even if you go to Swargaloka and you receive a Swargaloka body, that is also a material body. And everything that is material has got an expiry date. The entire Prakata Prapancha has got an expiry date. So even they have an expiry date. So what good is this Amrit? It will help you recover very quickly when you are in a war. You are knocked off today, tomorrow morning you can get up and again come back for war. So it gives you vitality basically. It gives you lot of strength. From our point of view, unimaginable amount of strength, longevity, energy and all those things it gives, but it does not give you Amaratva. No. That real Amaratva is gotten only when we go up to the transcendental platform. When we receive a transcendental body, that is when we actually become Amara. Until then, everybody is Mara only. Until then, everybody is subject to birth and death and birth again. And that birth again actually happens because of our activities, because of our desires, because of our vasanas. The birth again is decided. So, these are the important takeaways from this 27th verse. And today we shall also look at verse number 30, which actually concludes this particular section of chapter 2. Shloka 30 reads, Dehi nityam avadhyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. Again, natvam shochitum arhasi is there, repeated. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. The purport Srila Prabhupada writes, the Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna as a Kshatriya should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher Bhishma and Drona will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as soul. or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the time of war it is not discouraged when there is actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. So, from shloka 11 of the second chapter until this shloka, shloka 30, is the Jnana section of chapter 2. In this, 4 points can be summarized out of all these verses put together. One is, the first point is the identity of the living entity. That the living entity is an immutable spirit soul. Prabhupada writes in the purport, no? Immutable spirit soul. The second point that comes out of these verses is soul is immortal, eternal, and body is mortal, temporary. Third point Krishna makes here is that just because the soul is immortal, it is in no way encouraging whimsical violence, slaughter, murder, war. Anything that is done whimsically is not encouraged just by saying that, only the body is dying, so I can kill. The soul doesn't die. But this is not a license to kill, so to say. And fourth point is that violence must be justified in terms of sanction of the Lord and not by our whims. And what is the practical application? As a Kshatriya, Arjuna should not abandon his duties just because Bhishma and Drona will die. So, these are the 4 important points that we take away from this 30th shloka. In both 27th and 30th shloka, Krishna says, Natvam shochitum arhasi. That is very important in the context of Arjuna's shochitum. That Arjuna is in lamentation or he is in distress because of the imminent death of his relatives. But just to bring the point of how merciful or how compassionate Arjuna is, when we look back at Mahabharata, and when we actually read through the innumerable injustices done to the Pandavas, very, very horrible things were done to them throughout, from childhood. Like Bhima on one hand has been always targeted by Duryodhana, and not just targeting, not in terms of giving him some trouble or irritating him, not like that, always trying to kill. Bhima was always targeted to be killed. The Pandavas as a whole, they were always targeted to be killed. And using very nefarious means, they were kicked out of their country. And in the worst case of violence against women, their wife, she was insulted in the assembly of all the Kurus. So each and every injustice that was done to the Pandavas, we can go on listing them. And it is also given as a great example of how surrendered these Pandavas were to the Supreme Lord Krishna, that even though they were fully surrendered and very close and very dear to Krishna, they underwent so many troubles. That also is pointed out as one of the great qualities of the Pandavas? That even though they were very close to Krishna, very dear to Krishna, they had no dearth of difficulties. And in spite of getting these difficulties, they never gave up Krishna also. They never gave up on Krishna. Just if we compare ourselves with the Pandavas, 2 or 3 setbacks will be more than enough for us to denounce God altogether. That is our level of surrender or devotion. First we will question God, next we will blame God, in the next step we will say there is no God, and in the fourth step we will wage war against God if possible. This is how normal people behave. And Arjuna is not a normal person. Arjuna is very, very devoted to Krishna. And Krishna is very, very dear to Arjuna. And because these are all very spiritually oriented personalities, even though Arjuna is a Kshatriya, he is a warrior, all said and done. Like a Kshatriya has married several women, he has shown his valor in several battles, everything is there. But putting all that aside, what we find at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita is Arjuna's compassion. On one hand, like Srila Prabhupada says, it is a natural compassion of somebody who is considers Krishna very dear to him. Prabhupada writes that. So that is actually the focus in Arjuna's compassion. Of course, also he is representing the Jiva, so he has these doubts, he has these worries, he has these anxieties, he is worried about sinful reaction. All that are actually incidental. The higher principle is that he is highly compassionate. That is why Arjuna is saying, if they want to wage war and take the country from us, let them take it and be happy, he says. Although he has suffered so much, and he has taken vow, he has taken shapatha to kill so many people on the other side. Having done all that, his compassion comes forth. When he says that, okay, let them take it. If this is what they want, let them take it. And if we have to fight tooth and nail for the same thing, how do we, Pandavas, become any different from the Kauravas? Compassion. So, this compassion is shining forth, and it requires a great communicator like Krishna to very tactfully show Arjuna that although your compassion is good, but in this particular circumstance, in this particular situation, Arjuna, your compassion is misplaced. Your compassion is based on the bodily platform. This is also a great lesson for us. Most of our compassion is also based on the bodily platform. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us that actually compassionate people should give Harinam to others, because that is actually the ultimate requirement for any living entity. For any living entity, the ultimate requirement is happiness in chanting the holy names of Krishna. And if anybody is able to give that to somebody else, that is real compassion. All the other compassion is like showing compassion to the dress of a drowning man. Prabhupada uses that example, that one man is drowning and you are catching hold of his dress and pulling it out, saying that this dress is very valuable, let it not be lost. But simply saving that dress, is it of any use? It is not of any use. So, Krishna is advising Arjuna, Natvam shochitum arhasi. That which is not worth lamenting for, you should not lament. That which is not worth lamenting for, you should not lament. Just consider, when you get this takeaway from the sweet shop, you go and buy a gulab jamun. They pack it in, one small round box, and there is the jeera or sheera and the gulab jamun inside it. And it is there, the gulab jamun is there, you put it in a bag, you don't want it to spill, you don't want it to fall out. So with great care, we will bring it, right? The moment we take that gulab jamun out of that box, of that small container, what do we do to the container? We take the container and throw it away. Why? It has served its purpose, and once the gulab jamun is out, the box, dabba, has no value. And it is very easy for us to understand. Will we ever lament that, oh, gulab jamun was brought in that nice round plastic box and now it is gone, thrown away? No. Without a second thought, we will take it and throw it away. Similarly is the case with everyone's body. As long as me, you, the soul is sitting inside that body, it has value. It will be treated with great care. The moment it is gone, the moment you and I leave this box, the box will be burnt. Simple. And Krishna is telling Arjuna, this is understanding, this is dhira. And also understanding that once the jamun is used, the box is meant to be thrown away. It has no value without the jamun in it. So actually, although it is kept nicely closed and handled with great care only because of the jamun sitting inside it. Otherwise, it would have been thrown on the road a long time ago. So, jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuh dhruvam janma mritasya cha. So, anybody who is born is sure to die. And anybody who is dying is sure to be born again. The only way we can stop it is when we stop this whole karma business. That is why that particular verse 27 is also called the Karmavada verse. Means, basically Krishna is telling Arjuna that as per your karma, you will die and you will be born again. So don't worry about death. Don't worry about killing. That is apariharya. Because if there is no other parihara, if there is no other alternative, you have to kill means you have to kill. And in this case, O Arjuna, you have no other parihara. Because you have taken so many shapatas. You have been at the receiving end of adharma. And adharma has not been done only to you and your family. When dharma is broken, Krishna is making this point very clear. In many places, it is not that only you 5 fellows are affected by it. When the king is doing adharma, he may be directing that adharma to one person or a few people, but then it is affecting the entire society. You see? So then, a cleaning activity is required. So Krishna is arranging for that in the battle. And he is telling Arjuna, it is inevitable. Which means what? Which means, hey Arjuna, actually this war happening or not happening is not in your control, first of all. so also you should not lament about it. You see. Another great point we learn is that if something is not in your control, then don't lament over it. It is simply a waste of time. So, Jatasya Dhruva Mrityu is also not in our control. So, we should not lament about it. You know, the moment of anyone's death is not in that person's control. But he will spend the whole life lamenting about it, the whole life he will spend in anxiety about it. When is it going to come? When is it going to come? It will definitely come, and what I am going to do, like that. Also by lamenting, also by spending time in anxiety about these things, it actually takes away that valuable time with which you can prepare for that eventuality. You see, it is not only that I know Jatasya Dhruva Mrityu, a very famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. Even a lot of materialist people also will quote this, this half verse, Jatasya Dhruva Mrityu. It is quoted even by materialistic people, because everybody knows, if you are born, you are sure to die. But simply knowing, it's of no use. Unless and otherwise you do something about it, what is the point? Same way, in the 30th sloka also, Krishna is speaking about Dehi Nityam Avadhyoyam Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. That somebody who is sitting inside the Deha, he is eternal. Dehi is Nityam. He is Nityam. He is Avadhya. He cannot be killed. And he is sitting in everybody's body. Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. So, sitting in everyone's body, this eternal soul cannot be killed. Therefore, you should not lament about it. So, when I actually come to the level of understanding that I have eternal life, then if I have that understanding, immediately I should stop lamenting and also start acting on that platform of knowledge that I am eternal. And that will be seen when we act in a manner that reflects that knowledge. When we actually have nothing to lament, when we are actually becoming anxiety free. One very noticeable thing about having knowledge is that we will become anxiety free. So, if somebody is free of anxieties, then we can say that he is actually advancing in knowledge. That is for a spiritual practitioner. If you are in complete ignorance also, you will be anxiety free. But that is a kind of anxiety freedom that is not recommended for us. Somebody who is completely ignorant also will be free of all anxieties because doesn't know what is happening. But that anxiety free is something on a very animalistic level, which we are not interested in. We want to become free of anxieties. Natvam shochitum arhasi. Understanding that natvam shochitum arhasi, that this does not deserve my lamentation. What? This body business does not deserve natvam shochitum arhasi. So that situation, that event, it does not deserve your lamentation. Krishna's wordplay is very significant, we must understand. Instead of directly saying don't lament, Krishna says this process does not deserve your lamentation. You see? So that's why the acharyas say, the commentators say that Krishna is one of the most effective communicators. In the modern world, we read about effective communication. That is, the whole idea of a communication is that the other person must get the message that we are giving. Or I am called an effective communicator when I am able to communicate to you my point, my message very clearly without doubts. And throughout Bhagavad Gita, as a student of Bhagavad Gita, we will see that Krishna is a very effective communicator. Although he will take you through all those things and then finally hit on to the point like that. And when you couple that with the commentary of somebody like Prabhupada, who is another highly effective communicator through his purports, the purport of 27th shloka, or take the purport of the 30th shloka, the explanations are very, very crisp. The explanations are to the point, and they make the point very well. When we say no, point well taken, point well said. So Prabhupada is somebody, point well said. He will make sure that the point is presented in the most effective manner so that the reader gets the communication very, very effectively. You may or may not agree with it. That is another given up their lives. When they came to know that I have only this much time to live, they are very coolly, without any stress, they have given up their lives. How is that? Because they all understand this philosophy very well. So, from these shlokas, we also must understand this very well about, the impermanence of the body and the eternal nature of the soul. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita Granth Raj ki jai.